You're gonna be so Casey, why did you think it was important? Bitch, why did you think it was important?
I've been thinking it's important because we're in the thick of it right now.
We are.
Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Big topic. Big topic. Controversial topic.
Real topic.
Let's run it.
Yes.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Humanhood series with your girl, Melanie Peralta and
Casey Riley.
Today, we are going to be diving into a pretty hot topic, controversial topic, but as always, we are only here to humanize your human experience and make personal development more personal. And today, it's feeling pretty personal.
Why did we start this off so heavy and deep?
Because it feels that way for me.
It does.
It feels that way for me.
Yeah.
It's I've been experiencing it. You've been experiencing it. It's a huge collective shift in our industry. I don't know if it's just our industry. I think it might also be our city. I know this. I don't think this is just happening all over the place, but it's also a big thing that's just happened. I'm seeing more of it on social media.
Yeah. Social media always brings more light to things that are happening.
True, but our algorithm is our algorithm.
True.
So I had a conversation with somebody about it recently, and they were like, "Oh, that's happening." I'm like, "Yeah, you haven't seen it? It's everywhere." So let's stop being so mysterious. What we're talking about is there is a huge shift right now when it comes to spiritual and religious beliefs. That's happening personally within our community. And like I said, that's happening in our industry. And to be honest, it's been really interesting and uncomfortable in ways. There's a lot of people really moving into Christianity in a deep way. There's also, at the beginning of my journey, what I first experienced was more people moving away from religion, more people moving away from Christianity and Mormonism and Jehovah's Witness and all of that stuff. Feeling like that was a cage, that was a prison, that was something that was disempowering and didn't sit right within themselves. And now there's actually a huge shift of people who were more spiritual, quote unquote, new age, woo woo, who are now making the shift back to Christianity. And there's some really huge spiritual figures that are doing that. I cannot remember her name right now. Doreen Virtue or I don't know. I don't remember her name. But essentially it was a woman who so much of her career was she made card decks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes. And now she's like hardcore deep in her Christian faith, and she feels like, you know, all the work that she was doing was magic, witchcraft of the devil, and now she's working to save the people who were following her at that point and have a sense of redemption and the new path that she's walking. And I was telling Casey before we dove into this, I really don't want this episode to be about the spirituality or the religion itself. The conversation that feels important for us to have, because this is what we're currently experiencing, and I know other people are in this experience too, is the human aspect of it. When somebody that you love deeply and care about deeply is moving into a direction that is not the direction that you're moving into, and what comes with that. The shift in relationship, the changes and the dynamic, and sometimes even the judgment. Like, I'll share a personal story of what I went through once as we dive deeper, but it's loud right now.
Yeah.
It is. It's really loud and it's uncomfortable. And I think it's really important for all of us to get grounded in these shifts so that we can move through them as gracefully, as lovingly, as carefully, and as open-minded as we possibly can, because obviously we're all human everybody is just seeking for what they feel like is truth, what they feel like is going to enrich their lives, what they feel like is the right way. And I personally don't love sitting here and saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Obviously, there's things out there that are blatantly wrong, like motherfucking satanic rituals. Those are wrong, especially if you do them on people. You know what I mean?
Yes, Melanie, that's wrong.
But it's crazy because even those people
think what they're
they
doing
feel
is right.
justified in what they're doing for the reason why they believe. So it's interesting to sit here with all of these different belief systems and ways of living and paths. And what do I do in the middle of it when I'm not in the same transition as you are? And how do we coexist? That's the question.
That is the question. And I think the important thing here is, and you mentioned this right now, was it's not about what you're choosing to do or what your beliefs are. Because when we first stepped into our spiritual awakening, we had this like profound awareness. I remember when I did my first plant medicine journey, and it was like Pandora's box opened. And literally, I thought I was better than everyone else. And like, you're so low vibe and low frequency.
Right.
And like, I'm this new person and get on my level type of thing.
Right.
So I fully understand connecting with something new and like going so deep into it. And as we always talk about, the human pattern is going super extreme and then finding your way back to a really happy balance and medium. Right. So I totally get it. I get the excitement around diving deeper into religion or diving deeper into a different belief. But the thing that you and I both have felt in our personal experience on being on the other end of which somebody is exploring this really deeply is feeling like, or I'll speak for myself, is feeling like, where is my place in your life now? You know, because this person is now operating from a completely different belief set. And some of those things, like, I still dabble in the things that they no longer want to dabble in.
Yeah.
And so for me, it feels like, can we still maintain a really healthy, beautiful friendship? Or is our friendship on the chopping block because you're chopping off everything else in your life?
Yeah.
And so it's like being on the other end of that. And for me, as someone who is super understanding, like I am so understanding of people. I'm like, move through your process, do you. And if I'm being honest, I still feel this way. And so I don't know what your experience has been being on the other end of a friendship who has been making major changes as well. But that's really been my only like major thing I felt, because I'm like, I love the changes you're making. You're becoming a beautiful, incredible human. Like you really, really are.
Totally.
And then when I felt like the friendship got challenged, I was like, oh wow, I didn't even know that was going to be a thing in question.
Yeah. So like you said right now, like you're making these changes and it's just really beautiful. It's great for you. I think that that's what's the most important, is if what you choose is working for you. At the end of the day, really the whole point is to just be a good human. Really, a good human. And recently, actually, there's this big influencer. Her name's Brittany Griner. She was an influencer in a very more of like a provocative type of way for a long time. And she has recently transitioned into being Muslim. And it's like this big thing right now. She's like, there's this rapper, his name's Kevin Gates. If you guys know, you know. He's Muslim.
He's got 2 phones. If you know,
he's
you know.
Muslim. and so it's like this funny thing, because they were like just like these big figures on their own, and now they're both Muslim, and then they've come together, and now they're together. And now she went from being this super sexy, beautiful, like her physical attributes were a big part of her fame. I want to say maybe she was even like on the Basketball Wives show or something like that. But now she's in the whole Muslim wear, you know? She's all covered up. She's deep in her faith. She's online, very, very loud about it. And everyone's like, you're a hypocrite. And she's like, no, I found my way to Allah, and this is working for me. I'm happy here. I feel like I'm living in truth. And you can genuinely see in her being that she really is a better person, and she really is happy within her own spirit because of the transition that she's made. And I love that for her. I'm not Muslim. I'm not feeling personally drawn to that faith. But if that has elevated you in your life, then you fucking go, Clan Coco. Like you go, Clan Coco. I love that for you, for real, for real.
Yeah.
That's what I think faith of all different kinds is meant to elevate us in a high quality, healthy, beautiful, loving way, you know? And so it's interesting because one of my recent experiences that, dude, when I went through this, it really fucked me up. It really did. I was so upset. I get a call from my sister one day, and she goes, hey, what are you doing over there? Worshiping the devil? And I was like, what? And I know my sister, so I know she's just fucking with me, but I was like, what? She goes, yeah, you know, I heard you over there worshiping the devil with all your rituals and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then she proceeds to tell me that my childhood best friend from my hometown, that they were out at some like event in town. There was a good amount of people around, and some guy walks up, and everyone's all coupled up, and he's like, dang, man, like I need to find my wife. And my sister, being my sister, just joking, she's like, hey, I got a single sister. And then my childhood best friend steps into the conversation and goes, oh no, you don't want her, she doesn't believe in God. And my sister was like, what? She's like, she doesn't believe in God. And my sister told her, what are you talking about? Yeah, she does. She's never said that before. And she's like, well, no, she doesn't believe in God. She believes in the universe, and she prays to her crystals, and she everything that she does is of the devil. And first of all, I don't even pray to crystals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't work with crystals. That's never been a thing of mine. I love them, and I think they're beautiful. And I do believe in their innate power, which is why we use them in science and in lasers and shit like that. Like, I know the science behind crystals and their elements to them. So I do believe that they have certain qualities about them that people can utilize, which is why we do utilize them in science. But I don't sit there and pray with them. That's not, I've never been like that, you know? And so, first of all, I live in a really small town, like really small town. So you can't just say that about me in a group setting like that in front of those people, that I don't believe in God. You could say a lot of things about me, but don't say that. For me, that paints a very specific type of picture of somebody, you know? And I coach some people in my hometown, and I'm actually probably gonna do like a workshop there soon for a local business, which I'm super excited about. But that was a soft spot for me. And especially because of who it came from. Because prior to that, I was at her house, I don't know, maybe like a month or two before that. And when I was there, I was wearing my Universe Got Me hat. And she's like deep into her Christianity. And so she's like, you believe in the universe? And I'm like, of course I believe in the universe. God created the universe. It's a real thing. It exists. You know what I mean? Universal law is very real. And I start diving into that, you know, and she's just like, asking me all these questions. And as she's asking me these questions, I'm sharing with her my relationship with God. And I can tell that she's looking at me like, you need to be saved.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I'm really, really glad that you found Jesus and that you have deepened your relationship with God, because I know she really needed it. She was going through a lot in her life, and that she built that relationship during that season is beautiful because it has been so healing for her in a very, very dark time. But don't come for me, girl. Just because I'm in a different space than you, and my relationship with God has been tight for a long time, and it might not look like the way that you think it should look or the way that yours looks, but I've been doing God's work for almost a decade. Period. Whether you want to say the work that I do is of the devil, but I've literally been transforming lives in a very healthy human way for almost a decade. And you just got close with Jesus, and now you want to talk about me? Hell no.
You want to talk about mama?
So I was pissed.
Yeah.
Girl, I was so mad. I wouldn't have been that upset if she just said that to my sister, but the fact that she announced it like that in front of all those people in my hometown, I was like, don't you dare.
Yeah.
Don't you dare go spreading rumors that I don't believe in God and that I work with the devil and shit like that. Do not. So I was so hot, bitch. Shout out to all the inner work. I told myself at the time, I was like, she's gonna hear from me. She's gonna. You don't get to do that and get away with it, is how I felt at first. But then I was like, let me wait until I'm regulated. Let me not send her a message while I'm super triggered and super emotional. And so as I waited for that time to not be triggered and not be emotional and to finally be regulated, by the time I got to that space, I was like, I don't even feel like I need to address you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By the time I got to that point, because the truth is, even though that is my childhood hometown best friend, we're not in each other's lives anymore, which is why she has no idea of what she's actually talking about, because she doesn't really know me anymore. And she doesn't know what I actually do. And so, yeah, it shook me, man. And because I went through that, I have another friend in my circle who she has transitioned really deep into her Christian faith too, but I never feel judgment from her, ever. I only feel love and acceptance and connection from her. And she's really deep in it. And she has a lot of friends who are too. And I'm not one of those friends. Me and a couple of our friends aren't one of those friends, but she never shows up like that. So I was so upset. I called her because I'm like, if anybody can help me move through the feeling that I'm feeling right now, it's somebody who kind of understands both sides, you know? So I called her and I was really emotional about it. And I ended up going to her house and talking to her about it. And she did just admit, she's like, yeah, you know, there's levels and layers and flavors of Christianity. And there really are. There's like so many different extremes, or like she said, flavors. There's so many different flavors. And she was like, some of the Christians do get incredibly judgmental. And I'm sorry that you have to be on the other end of that. But then she asks me, what is your relationship with God? And I told her, I'm like, well, I grew up Catholic. What'd you grow up?
Christian.
Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up Catholic. We never really went to church like that because my dad was wild when I was younger. You know, my dad was skydiving, partying. My nana was the reason why we went to church when we went to church. She was devout Catholic, like woke up 5 a.m. to do the rosary every day.
My grandma was similar as well. Whenever we'd go to church, we'd spend the weekends with her, and every Sunday we'd be in like 3-hour services.
Yes.
And I was like, 3 hours? This is excessive.
Yeah. I mean, my nana went hard like that too.
Yeah.
You know? And honestly, though, I'm grateful because I know I'm still riding the waves of her prayers. And I will forever. My nana was such a prayer warrior. And I absolutely believe in the power of prayer, 1,000%. So anyways, I shared with her, like, I have always had, ever since I was a little girl, I have always had such a deep connection with what I feel like is God, what felt like God to me and my soul and my spirit, always. And that has been the guide and the voice for me throughout my entire life, and especially throughout my entire journey in the personal development industry. It was literally God who was telling me, you need to throw an event and teach women what you know. And I was like, hell no, I ain't doing that. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And it was literally my relationship with God's voice that kept guiding me every step of the way. That's the voice that I listen to when I'm creating. If it doesn't resonate in that way and it feels like it's of my ego, I won't create it. And I've developed a relationship within myself and with spirit that I know the difference now. And that's how I operate and that's how I move. And I don't have a middleman to access that. And I was sharing that with her and she was just like, okay. And again, no judgment, nothing, just an ear, just support, and just loving me through the fact that I was really upset about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like something I've seen, and this, I don't want to speak in general statements here, but a lot of people who I've seen like start to step back into the religion start off really open-minded and like understanding, and then it's like the deeper they get, the more judgy they get. And so it's like, I love that that was your experience in that conversation, but I'm curious if like 3 years down the road, if that would be the same conversation being had.
Totally.
Because that's just a pattern I've been seeing.
Totally.
It's like everything's great and understanding we can coexist, and it's like, actually we can't coexist in this environment.
Right.
And we can't in this environment. And then it's like less and less.
Right.
And so, yeah, there are different flavors of religion, but I'm just like more so curious about later on down the road.
Like later down the road.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said in the beginning, at the beginning of my journey, there was so many people who were leaving religion. Like even the battles. They, like Betty and Javante, and I know I can speak on this because this is a story that they've shared publicly. They were hardcore Jehovah Witness. She was Jehovah Witness her whole life. Her whole family was. And so when I first met them, Javante was too. I mean, well, technically I've known Javante forever. I've known him since I was 12. But when he first became Jehovah Witness, because he became Jehovah's Witness when they married. And he was hard. He was like knocking on doors type of stuff. Yeah, I've always been a committed guy. He's always had that trait. Shout out to my brother Javante.
Knocking on doors.
Yeah, he was. He really
leaving families.
He was. He got super into it, you know. And he shared. He was like, as I got deeper into it, there was just things that just didn't feel right. That just didn't make sense to me. And so he got out of it. He slowly started diving into more spirituality and things like that, which now they're Reiki masters and Reiki teachers, and that's the work that they've devoted themselves to. He left first, and as soon as the church found out that he was even dabbling in those types of things, he was completely shunned from everything. The family, the friend circle, the church community, which obviously they were very deep in. And he was completely isolated. And it was like, Betty, you and your children can come, but he can't. It was like that type of thing. And then eventually he just supported her, and you keep doing this. They respected each other's paths, which I give so much grace to her and respect for her being able to have the capacity to hold his change, even in the midst of a lot of pressure from people to get rid of him, you know? And she honored his process. And she honored his process so much that eventually she was impacted by his process. And then she started to learn what he was learning, and she started to feel the way that he was feeling. And long story short, they left the faith. And eventually more members of her family left the faith, and now they live a completely different life. They're truly some of the most phenomenal human beings I know, with the most beautiful family and incredible children. And it's outside of the church in this way that the church is telling them is evil and dark and demonic.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of people who have left those types of things. Even Nate, he was a hardcore youth pastor for a big Christian megachurch. Mm-hmm. Same thing. Now he's in his mystic, spiritual path. And he's so much more fulfilled here, so much more liberated here, so much more himself here, and his family too. So it's like, who's to say?
Yeah.
Which way is wrong or which one is right?
No, and I think the thing that we've talked about this before is suppression. I feel like a lot of these different belief systems can suppress a lot of your truth. You know, I always get curious about the people who are like gay and then they find God and they're no longer gay. And I'm just like, is that really?
I don't know anybody like that. Do you know somebody like that?
I've seen interviews and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I don't personally know anyone.
I was like that's fascinating.
You know, bring them on. I know. And so, but I'm curious about that type of stuff. You know, it's like, and they could totally have been like, yeah, I was losing myself in the media and the clubs and everything, like totally. But I do believe that there are natural human things that we just want to explore and like do, and suppressing that, we know what suppression does. It literally depresses you and pressurizes your body so much where you have mental breakdowns, you get dis-ease, you don't feel well. And so some of these belief systems have so many rules around them where I honestly love some of the rules. I'm like, I love that you are able to devote yourself to this way of living and these rules. Like, this is beautiful. And is that really, are all of these your truth? Truly, is it your truth? And then I feel like with religion, it's not their truth. It's God's truth. And so it kind of takes the self-sovereignty out of decision making.
Well, that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
Is for them to be in complete devotion to God entirely. And I hear a lot of prayer of God, like, let this be none of me and all of you. And I also do kind of love that to a degree. Not in a religious way, because I've actually prayed that prayer before. It's like, get me out of the way is the prayer. You know what I mean? So sometimes I can see how people want to separate the humanness and to let God's way fully immerse how they move, you know? But like you said, there could be manipulation in that. If it's like, is this actually true for me?
Is it true for you?
Am I low-key hating myself or shaming myself because I'm trying to just live God's way?
And I think that shame piece is the major piece right there, because we all know when we like ate the wrong thing or we said the wrong thing, how much shame comes with that in general. So when it comes to religious beliefs, it's even like thoughts can put you in a way of living in sin. Like even just thinking a certain way.
Right.
You know how much I overthink? Do you know how much I think? Like, oh my gosh, I feel like everything.
Like people's crazy compulsive thoughts and shit.
Right. And it's like, oh my goodness, like that would be so challenging. But then again, I see the beauty in it as well, where it's like, this is not mine. Let me get rid of it. You know, like, let me refocus to what is my truth or what is the truth. And so I see so many beautiful things about religion, but I think the point of this conversation was being on the receiving end of someone who's making a major change in their life.
Right.
And I even think back to when, you know, I had my like spiritual awakening and like how much I changed and how much Brian had to sit through that. You know, he's like, I used to date this chick who would like get drunk with me and eat pizza and like stay out late and all this stuff. And now it's like a completely different person.
Yes.
I still think my heart is the same and it's actually better. But there are so many elements that no longer align with me, you know? And so even witnessing like him or friends who have watched me evolve into these different like parts of my life, it's the same thing. But with me in that example, I was never I never cut him out of my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Same thing with like going back to the Javante and Betty thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can, like, if you're highly unaligned at some point, like, yes, you should not stay in a dynamic where you're just like completely not on the same wavelength. So I understand that. And another thing I love about like the religious view as well, it's like if you can have an inner knowing and like drop things that quickly, good for you. Like, you know how many people stay in shitty like workplaces and shitty relationships because they're too scared to leave, but you have a knowing and you can just cut it out and leave.
Right.
That's an amazing quality to
Yeah.
have as well.
Totally.
But I think it's just being responsible with it. And with the circumstance that I've been moving through, it really has been a form of super open and honest communication up until this point. And it's nothing bad. It's not like we're not friends or anything like that is happening, but it's just like, this is where I'm moving. I'm moving really rapidly. And like, I just want to like let you know like how my life is changing.
Yeah.
And so it's just been a really interesting thing to move through, being so understanding, but then it makes you feel, or makes me feel like, I don't know if you ever feel this way, where like, I'm always so understanding. Like, am I really this understanding?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the answer would just be yes.
Yeah.
And that comes from a regulated place.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It comes from a non-triggered place.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm not in opposition to what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm not in opposition to your experience. I'm not in an emotional conflict with your experience. I'm just with your experience.
Yes.
I feel like that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Because sometimes I do question my behaviors. I'm like, why am I always so understanding of people? Why am I so like chill about everything? Do I need to feel some type of way about certain things? But then when I really sit with it, it's like, no, I know I can be honest with myself,
Yeah.
with my emotions, and like, it's not worth me spiraling over and getting worked up.
Totally.
Like, move through it, girl.
Totally. Yeah. So it's been interesting. And if you're listening to this and you have been experiencing this yourself, or, you know, maybe you're the spiritual friend, maybe you're the religious friend, I hope that you're listening and can just get back to a human place of understanding and love and grace and care and humility, that everyone at the end of the day really is just trying to find what feels right,
Yeah.
what feels like truth, what feels safe for them. For some people, religion does not feel safe.
Yeah.
For some people, spirituality doesn't feel safe. Everyone's just seeking safety and everyone's just seeking support from a greater force, a greater power than themselves. And that's very human.
Yeah.
That's such a human thing.
I feel like everyone's seeking the same thing, and it's just calling it a different paradigm.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
It's like we all just want to be happy and healthy and safe.
Right.
And the vehicle in which we get it, whether it's through self or through God or through the practices that you do, like we are all seeking that at the end of the day.
Right.
You know? And so I think it's just being like, super understanding of people's beliefs, and that's their belief. We even talked about this in the leadership episode. Like, people really believe what they believe.
Yeah.
You know, that is their truth, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's removing the judgment of other people and knowing what's within your parameters of what's really out of integrity and out of alignment with you. Like, if you cannot be around people like who drink, for example, like that is your hard boundary, wonderful. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But if that really, if you're really like kind of okay with it, but something else is telling you not to be okay with it, feel into your meter. Like, what is your truth in that example?
Yeah.
You know?
Because we can still all coexist with our
Yes.
differences. We already do in a lot of ways. Like, I have certain friends that they don't live the lifestyle that I live. A lot of my family members, they don't live the lifestyle that I live. And I don't agree with all the ways that they do choose to live their lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop fucking smoking meth, dog. You want a sandwich? Like,
Put
God.
the McDonald's down.
Put the pipe down,
And the
bitch.
pipe down.
But, like, are you hungry? Can I feed you something? You know, it's like, that's a pretty extreme thing to disagree with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can love you no matter what, because our souls are in sync and we've chosen each other in this life. And at the end of the day, I only want to see you win and I only want to see you well. That's all that I care about. So I think, like, we need to come back to that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what's really important.
Well, and all the differences in all of us, that's what makes life beautiful. If you're just a carbon copy of everything, you know, like, it's going back to not becoming so fragile. You know, it's like you want to be able to experience different people and different environments and different things and be able to coexist and not be completely thrown off your center when around certain people or you hear certain things.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, how do you, like, keep your nervous system capacity nice and adaptable here?
Yeah.
You know?
And another thing too is, like, there's gold and gems in all of it.
Yeah.
Like, I can see my certain friends who live a way more woo-woo spiritual lifestyle than me, but I can even see within their lifestyles of, like, that's a golden nugget right there. I like that. Or see in my Christian friends of how they operate, especially when it comes to, like, marriage and family, and see the values over here and be like, that's beautiful. I love that. Or see people in the Muslim faith and how the women are a little bit more, not a little bit, but how the women are more modest.
Yeah.
There's just, like, all of these elements. So Carolyn Mace actually has this book that literally changed my life. It's called Anatomy of the Spirit. And then there's 7 spiritual truths that she talks about in the book. I love her, by the way. She is so amazing. She's like, spiritual woo-woo, religion, this is what it is. Theology, science, soul, spirit, prayer. She puts it in, like, this container that is all encompassing in a way that I really rock with. Yeah. I love her so much. But in her book, she talks about how all the biggest religions in the world have these 7 spiritual truths in common. I wish I could remember them right now. Actually, I'm feeling inspired to go read the book again because it's been a while. But she's saying in the book, ultimately, we're all working towards the same things. We're all operating under these same universal truths, these universal laws that make the human experience happy and harmonious. At least that's what we're all trying to do. We're just giving it a different face or giving it a different name, and it just looks a little bit different. But these are the main truths that you see the patterns globally when it comes to spirituality and religion. So highly recommend go check that book out. I haven't read it in a long time. Otherwise, I would share what the 7 spiritual truths are. I wish I knew them by heart, but I don't. But I feel like that's an important baseline to keep in mind is we're not really all that different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, there are people who call her demonic.
I know, but she's so not. She's not.
A lot of people aren't that's being called demonic.
I know. That's tough.
You know?
That's a harsh word to throw around.
That's super harsh.
You know what, though? Actually, I don't know if a lot of people know this. Demon is demon, means, like, not man. So that's what it means. When we think of demonic, we think of, like, literal, like, these dark entity figures. But to be a demon means that it's not of man. It's anti-man. So it's kind of like society, Hollywood films has painted this idea of, like, it being this pure darkness and evil, but ultimately it's just not of the natural way, which, I mean, these days there's so many different versions of what the natural way is.
Yeah.
We can go into all those rabbit holes. But language is really, really important when we're having these conversations, because that's a harsh one that people throw around with the idea that we have attached to what it means.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, people call breathwork demonic all the time. I get so many comments that like say really horrible things about that. And it's just like, you breathe all day, every day.
Yeah. Or the people in church who speak in tongues. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other thing too. Yeah. Is that demonic?
I mean, there's so many things, again, like that are overlaps. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole.
I don't think we do. Okay. I don't know where you're going, but I don't think we do. Me and Casey, when we first dove into that, I was like, I really don't want this conversation to be about the spirituality or the religion itself.
Yeah, more so about like how you're moving through the process.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're really just diving into the personal experience of if you are the one who's going through that change within your faith, or if you are outside of somebody who's going through the changes in their faith, and how we can harmoniously coexist with each other in a loving way, not like a fuck you way.
Oh my God.
It's like, you want to go be with Buddha? Fine.
Go.
I'm going to go be with Jesus.
Oh my God.
That's tough, man.
It's tough. And this is such a sensitive topic. And I guess one thing that I do want to say on this is there's so much sensitivity. Like, I feel very, I don't want to say fearful, but I'm very mindful of how I speak about this stuff, because I am not trying to bash anyone or anyone's religion.
Totally.
However, I feel bashed as fuck from religious people about what I do.
Right.
I just do.
Yeah.
Like being called demonic and like new ager and evil and counterfeit and all of these things.
Living in sin
and all this stuff. I'm like, I understand your belief system, but how can some people throw out those terms so easily on people? And
it's hurtful.
It's hurtful. And then I'm over here like, I actually fully understand like your point of view and your belief system, and I love so many elements about
like
what
you're trying to be so careful and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And you don't receive that same treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, we need to be more mindful on how we are communicating and conveying our belief system. It's just like, you know, people all the time growing up, they would like totally rip me for being so small. And like, go eat a cheeseburger and say all this stuff.
Me too.
Literally.
I got called anorexic so many times.
Oh, all the time. All the time.
Awful.
People would accuse me every day. And I'm like, you know how much I eat? Like, oh my gosh. But I could never comment on someone who's heavier.
Right.
Nor would I ever comment on somebody who's heavier.
The double standards.
You know, there's all the double standards and what makes one thing okay and the other not to speak on publicly. And so consider that as well as you like have friends in different communities and whatnot, like being respectful and mindful of their point of view and not bashing people in such a harsh way.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of that, I had a friend who is moving in this direction, and she was sharing, she's like, you know, when I was into the new age stuff, she goes, I would have no issue posting it all day, every day on social media. Oh, I just did this class and I did breathwork and yoga and all this stuff. And as she's moving into it, she's like, I'm feeling resistance being loud about my faith. And so I know some people are feeling that as well, where it's like, why could I so easily promote something that's more like wildly accepted? Because when I start talking about Jesus, now everyone like is looking at me as like the godly girl. And so they feel it as well in their own ways. Like, why do some of us feel like we can more openly talk about something and not the other?
Well, I think it's more so of an identity thing. Yeah. Because Nate went through that when he left the church. Like, he didn't talk about his spirituality and him getting into more like mysticism and plant medicine and energy. He didn't talk about none of that for so long. Yeah. So it's more so of an identity thing. It's like you've already established yourself with this identity for so long that now that you're making a huge pivot, it's hard to come out and say, I'm doing this now. And it's the same thing with business. Yeah. Same thing that I'm going through right now. It's like, hey, I'm not a Tony Robbins coach anymore. Now I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It's challenging. I think it's just the identity shift in general, not so much about the thing itself.
Yeah.
It's just, I went really hard in this, and now I'm going really hard in this. And it's an uncomfortable process for me to come and show you the change that I've made.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And with everything on social media, everyone being so open about their passions and their love and everything, making their whole social media account about this new change.
Yes.
Because there are some people who are not on social media at all, and they're moving through these same changes, and it's probably not as big of a deal.
Oh, no, not at all.
Because they're not sharing about it.
Yeah.
And then that makes me think, like, why do we share everything on social media?
Well, it's because a lot of us have developed a personal brand.
That's true.
Yeah. If you don't have a personal brand, and it don't matter.
You don't have to post your
Totally.
Your life change.
You don't feel like you have to share those things, but when you do have a personal brand and you are selling things, you want to make sure that your audience, the people who love you and the people who've bought into you, whether that's energetically or financially, that they know who you are.
That's true.
Yeah. So with all that being said,
don't be judgy.
But do you, boo.
Yeah.
Whichever way you are feeling called, explore it. Yeah. It might not be for you. Another one of my homegirls, shout out to Q, amazing person. She went through that path of being super deep into spirituality, then going really, really deep into Christian faith. And now she's in this merge of the middle, which she calls the Holy Girl era. She's got a whole offering of it on her Instagram. It's incredible. And when I first saw the marketing of it, I was like, yes, there's all of these different truths that are trying to say the same thing. And it's like the same concept of spirituality calls it manifestation and religion calls it prayer. It's all of these very, very similar things. But if you're feeling called in a direction, explore it. Yeah. Check in constantly to see if it feels good, to see if it feels right, and be mindful about it, because there are going to be other people on the other end of your experience who aren't on the same path as you. And if you care about those relationships and if they matter to you, you will move mindfully in the process of whatever your transition is, whether it's leaving religion and getting into a different faith, or leaving spirituality and going back into religion, whatever it is. In my opinion, you're not wrong. Whichever direction you feel called to, you're not wrong. You're just a human on a human experience that's seeking something greater than yourself for the ultimate fulfillment. And that's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. Moving mindfully, responsibly, and lovingly and respectfully.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to do with any change that you're making, just start like bulldozing everyone and everything in your life.
Totally.
You get to the top of the mountain and then you're up there alone.
Totally.
Totally. And so like being so mindful and communicating and open and honest every step of the way, and doing it from a very regulated space. Like, I'm having this new awareness about something. Like, let me have this settle into my body, settle into my being. And now let me make the change.
Yeah. Totally. Because at the end of the day, your relationships, your connections, they are the most precious thing on the planet. My Nana, hardcore, devoted Catholic. My Nana's room looked like the church. I swear. Statues and pictures. Her room looked like a church. I felt like the safest place in there when I was a kid. For real. Especially when I was going through my dark shit. But her best friend her entire life was hardcore Buddhist. Hardcore. She would do the chants and stuff like that. Yeah. And her and my Nana were thick as thieves till the end. Aww. Till the end. And they enriched each other's lives so much. And they didn't care about, oh, you're chanting and you're over here doing your rosary. Mine, I was like, oh, Ophelia, she's doing her chants right now. Let me call her later. It's like, it was fine.
Yeah.
Because it was the love. It was the connection. And to both of them, to their last days were like this.
Aww.
And our families are still like this.
Yeah.
Because of the connection that they had, regardless of their differences. And that's possible for all of us. It really is.
Ophelia's doing the chanting.
She would.
I love it.
She would. Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you for tuning in, as always. If you guys have been loving this series, please let us know. Leave a review. Subscribe to our YouTube or our Spotify so that you can get updates, since Casey and I will be dropping episodes every single Wednesday from here on out. We love you guys. Have an amazing rest of your day. Blessing you and whatever you've got going on in your world over there. Until next time.